In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about hyperlinks. And if you're familiar with HTML and websites, you're already well aware of what a hyperlink is. Even if you don't know the term hyperlink, you know what it is. Basically, hyperlink is when you see something that you can click on and it takes you somewhere. Hyperlinks are things that redirect you once you click on them. Pretty much everyone is familiar with them now, and you use them to get to this video. Now in SVG, you can include hyperlinks into the SVG graphic itself, which could allow a little bit of interactivity within your graphic. So they could click on different things to take them to certain websites, or maybe you have multiple SVG images and they click on one and it takes them to a different image. If I were creating that building that I had earlier, maybe I could click on the front doors of the building and I would actually maybe enter the building, or rather load a new graphic that looks like the interior of the building. Maybe you click on different parts and it loads new content that has information about the different aspects. So I could see some sort of interactive thing where if someone's learning a new language, you can click on different things and it will tell them what that word is in the language they're learning. There's lots of different things that you could do with this. Of course, you may not be familiar with all those things right now, but as we continue moving through, you'll learn some different techniques that can be used alongside this. This one is a little different in some ways than some of the others that we've looked at, but it's not too bad. The element itself is an anchor element, and this is the same type of element that we use with HTML. We call it an anchor element in HTML as well. The way that it actually looks, though, is a little different when it comes to the attributes. To make the base element, we type open angle bracket, an A, we put in the attributes, and we actually don't have the slash on the end of the anchor elements because we don't want to close the tag yet. We then put in whatever we want right after that opening anchor tag, and then we close the element after that thing. So whatever is in between the opening tag and the closing tag is what you can click on, is the interactive part. So what goes in there? What are the elements? We have X-link attributes, and we have a target attribute. There are multiple X-link attributes, and we'll go over them in just a moment. So if I want to include a link into here, I can open my anchor element and I'll add X-link and a colon, and then I put in those different type of X-link attributes. So like href, which stands for hyperlink reference, and then I can have it equal, and then some location, close the tag, and then I can put in whatever, and then close the elements. Now this should really be in a text element. Let's see if it will load it anyway. That's what I figured. That's okay. So let's actually use a real element here. So we can do text, and let's make the X equal like 10 or something, and the Y equal maybe 40. And we'll close the text element. We've used text very briefly before, but we haven't really talked about it. We'll go into text a little bit more after this, so that way you can know how you can style these links. And there we go. We have the text, and if I mouse over it, you can see my cursor changes from the arrow to the little hand there. And if I click on it, well, nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Because I didn't tell it to go anywhere. But if I now type maybe google.com, and I save and I refresh, now it went to Google. If I want it to actually go somewhere else, so like let's say I duplicate this file, and let's change the name. Maybe this can be lines 2, and let's modify it just so that way we actually know that it worked. Let's delete the link, and let's change this to maybe yellow, and the fill can be red, and we can save it and close that. And then if we want this to go there, we can tell it to go to lines2.html. If we save it and we reopen this, refresh it, and we click on this, there we go. It went to the new one. Now the computer found this file right here because they're in the same place. If you don't specify like where exactly it is, like I did with Google, like I did http://www.google.com, that's a specific location. It's going on the internet and it's finding that location. If you're not putting that whole address in here, then it's looking wherever is relative to its current location. So if this file is located on my desktop here, and I don't tell it where to look, then it's going to look on my desktop for this other file. If I have a folder with like other pages in there, like more stuff, and it's in there, if I save this and refresh, it won't find it. Can't find it. But if I tell it to look in more stuff / lines.html, it will now look in that folder. So if I save it and refresh, there we go, it found it. So keep that in mind. You need to make sure that you know where you're directing it to go and that that file is actually located at that location. Now I also had a few other attributes that I mentioned in here, like xlink title. And so what this does is it will actually put up a little title when you mouse over the page. So if I open this with Safari again, there we go. See, it says click to go. That's what that little title did. And if I want to add one more thing, like xlink show, and I have two different options here. I can do show new, which if I refresh this, it opened this new file in a new tab. If I instead do replace and refresh, it doesn't. It opens it in the same one. Now you might say, well, that's what you were already doing, and yeah, that's kind of how the default works. Now there is a slight important thing to be aware of with this. If you're using replace and your SVG is being loaded inside of an iframe, which is an HTML thing that we're not really talking about here, but if it is, and if you're familiar with that, this will load whatever page here is inside of that iframe instead of on the whole page itself. And if you're not very familiar with some of that lingo, that's okay, but if you are, that could be important to you. We can also do one other thing. We can do target. And target is actually very similar to show. The big difference, though, is that instead of doing replace, we can do top. And if we do top, it looks the same here because I'm not using an iframe. But if I was using an iframe, this targets the actual browser window, not an iframe that would be inside of a page. And once again, if you're not familiar with those terms, it's okay, but if you are, that could be relevant to you. In addition to top, we also have blank, which if I refresh this and I click on it, it opens it in a new tab, just like new did. So you can use new or blank with the show or target, and there's not really any difference. However, if you're using top or replace, there could be a difference. That's just about it for linking. It's not too complex. There is one other thing I want to show, though. I've been doing all of this with the text, right? But you don't have to use text. You can link just about anything. You could also link this polygon instead. So this polygon could be the link. So if I save and I refresh, now the polygon is the link. So just about anything can be linked. One other important thing to note too, this closing tag stops something from being a link. So if I have this actually below the text, and let's see where it's actually popping up. Well, that's fine. Right now, this is not a link, and this is, right? However, if I don't close this tag, and I save and I refresh, both are links now. Everything on this page is going to be a link until I include that closing tag. So just be aware of that. If a whole bunch of things on your page have magically become a link and you're not sure why, go look and see if you can find your closing tag because maybe you forgot to include it.